The folks in Ridgewood prided themselves on knowing their neighbors. It was a small town. People looked out for one another. At the heart of it all stood Sheriff Clayton Marshall. He was a pillar of the community, a man who embodied trust and authority. His word was his bond. He was a friend, a confidant, and a protector. But beneath that polished exterior, a darkness festered. A secret that would soon shatter the town's tranquility and expose the sheriff's sinister double life. Clayton Marshall was a charmer. He had a way about him, a disarming smile that could make you forget you were talking to the law. He was a regular at church, a family man with a wife and 2 kids. No one suspected the evil he harbored. No one, except the young girl who would become his victim. Monique Ellis was a bright and bubbly teenager, the apple of her parents' eyes. She was a fixture around the sheriff's office, volunteering her time and dreaming of a future in law enforcement. Sheriff Marshall had taken her under his wing, or so everyone thought. He often praised her work ethic and dedication. He became a mentor, a confidant. But their relationship took a dark turn, a sinister twist that would have devastating consequences. Little did Monique know she was walking into the lion's den. The man she trusted, the man who swore to protect her, was about to become her tormentor. Sheriff Marshall began grooming Monique slowly, subtly at first. He would offer her rides home from school, compliment her appearance, and buy her small gifts. He preyed on her innocence, her naivete. He manipulated her emotions, making her feel special, chosen. Monique, starved for attention and approval, fell into his trap. What began as innocent gestures soon escalated into something far more sinister. Late-night phone calls, secret rendezvous, and whispered promises became the norm. Monique, blinded by Marshall's charm and her own infatuation, believed she had found love. She didn't realize she was being groomed for something far more sinister. The truth was far more horrifying. Marshall was a predator, hiding in plain sight. He used his position of power to exploit and abuse a vulnerable young girl. He robbed her of her innocence, her future, her life, and he did it all while wearing the badge of a lawman. Fear gnawed at Marshall. Monique's pregnancy was a ticking time bomb. His carefully constructed facade, the image he'd meticulously built over decades, threatened to crumble. His desperation grew. He couldn't let his secret, his affair with a teenage girl, come to light. His reputation, his family, his entire life would be ruined. Panic seized him. He had to silence Monique to make sure his dark secret stayed buried. One fateful night, he lured her to a secluded area outside town. He had it all planned out, a story prepared, an alibi in place. He would make it look like an accident, a tragic disappearance. He slipped a sedative into her drink, watching as her eyelids grew heavy. Panic surged through Monique as she realized what was happening, but it was too late. Her body went limp. He drove to a remote wooded area, a place he knew from his hunting trips. There, under the cover of darkness, he buried Monique's lifeless body in a shallow grave. The next morning, he reported Monique missing, feigning concern and playing the part of the grieving mentor. He even led the search parties, his face a mask of sorrow, while the terrible truth lay buried beneath the ground. Weeks turned into months. The investigation into Monique's disappearance stalled. Sheriff Marshall, using his influence, ensured that resources were stretched thin, leads grew cold. He continued to play the part of the concerned mentor, offering words of comfort to Monique's devastated parents while secretly relishing his control over the situation. But the truth has a way of surfacing. Hikers stumbled upon Monique's remains, partially hidden by undergrowth. The news spread through Ridgewood like wildfire. The town held its breath, a collective gasp of horror and disbelief. Their beloved sheriff, the man they entrusted with their safety, had betrayed them in the most unimaginable way. The evidence against Marshall was overwhelming. Cell phone records placed him near the crime scene on the night Monique disappeared. Surveillance footage showed his car entering the wooded area. A search warrant executed at his home uncovered traces of Monique's blood in his truck. The walls were closing in, the truth impossible to outrun. The arrest was swift, the charges damning. First-degree murder, kidnapping, abuse of power. The man who had sworn to uphold the law now found himself on the other side, his crimes exposed for the world to see. Ridgewood reeled, the betrayal cut deep. How could their trusted sheriff, the man who had sworn to protect them, commit such a heinous act? The news spread like wildfire, leaving shock and disbelief in its wake. The town that once prided itself on its unity now grappled with anger, suspicion, and a profound sense of loss. The trial was a media frenzy. Reporters from across the country descended upon the small town, eager to chronicle every twist and turn of the case. The courtroom was packed, the atmosphere thick with tension. Monique's parents sat stoically, their faces etched with grief, their eyes fixed on the man accused of taking their daughter's life. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence, meticulously laying out the case against Marshall. Witnesses testified to his manipulative behavior, his controlling nature, his desperate attempts to cover up his crimes. Forensic experts presented their findings, leaving no doubt that Monique had been murdered and that Marshall was responsible. Throughout the trial, Marshall maintained a stoic facade. He sat at the defense table, his face a mask of indifference. He seemed unfazed by the damning evidence, the emotional testimonies, the weight of his crimes. The defense tried to paint a picture of a man falsely accused, a respected lawman caught in a web of circumstantial evidence. They argued that Monique, distraught over her unplanned pregnancy, had run away, that the evidence against Marshall was flimsy at best, but their arguments rang hollow in the face of the overwhelming proof of his guilt. The jury deliberated for 3 days before returning with a verdict, guilty on all counts. A collective gasp filled the courtroom as the verdict was read. Monique's parents embraced, tears streaming down their faces, a mixture of relief and profound sorrow washing over them. Marshall for the first time showed a flicker of emotion, his face contorted in anger and disbelief as the judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The weight of his crimes, the weight of the badge he had tarnished, finally crushing him. The trial was over, but the healing had just begun. Ridgewood had to come to terms with the horrifying truth, to rebuild trust, to find a way to move forward from the shadow of tragedy. And at the heart of that journey was Monique's family, determined to honor her memory and fight for justice in her name. Monique's parents, fueled by grief and a burning desire for justice, channeled their pain into action. They established the Monique Ellis Foundation, dedicated to supporting victims of abuse and raising awareness about predatory behavior. They organized self-defense classes, offered counseling services, and lobbied for stricter laws to protect vulnerable individuals. Their efforts resonated throughout Ridgewood and beyond. The community rallied around them, offering support, volunteering their time, and donating to the foundation. Monique's story became a catalyst for change, a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, awareness, and speaking out against injustice. The Monique Ellis Foundation became a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of turning tragedy into action. Monique's parents, through their tireless efforts, ensured that her death was not in vain. They transformed their grief into a force for good, working tirelessly to prevent similar tragedies from happening to others. Years later, the memory of Monique Ellis continued to loom large over Ridgewood. The town had learned a painful lesson about the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of accountability, and the need for constant vigilance. The sheriff's department underwent a complete overhaul, implementing stricter hiring practices, mandatory sensitivity training, and a zero-tolerance policy for abuse of power. Monique's story served as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even in the smallest, most tight-knit communities, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. It highlighted the importance of believing survivors, holding abusers accountable, and creating a culture where everyone feels safe speaking out against injustice. The Monique Ellis Foundation continued its vital work, expanding its reach and impact. They partnered with schools, community centers, and law enforcement agencies to provide education and resources to prevent abuse and support survivors. Monique's legacy lived on, not in the shadow of tragedy, but in the countless lives touched by her family's unwavering commitment to justice and healing. Monique Ellis was more than just a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a bright light extinguished too soon. Her story, though tragic, sparked a movement, a collective awakening that reverberated far beyond the borders of Ridgewood. It served as a stark reminder that the fight for justice requires constant vigilance, unwavering courage, and the unwavering belief in the power of speaking truth to power. And so, Monique's memory lives on, not in the darkness of her murder, but in the light of awareness, prevention, and unwavering support for survivors of abuse. Her story, though steeped in tragedy, became a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of times.